Hi, I'm Sarah Jaggard from the Australian Drug Foundation. This podcast features Geoff Munro talking about alcohol and young people. A former secondary school teacher, Geoff has worked in the drug field for over 20 years, specialising in drug prevention and community development for government and non-government services. Geoff is a Director of Policy at the Australian Drug Foundation. Thanks for coming today, Geoff.
Thank you, Sarah.
So, Geoff, why do you think young people drink?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why young people drink, Sarah. Firstly, it's very normal in Australia for people to drink alcohol. Alcohol is a feature of many Australians' entertainment and social life. So young people grow up in Australia knowing that alcohol is regarded as almost a badge of adulthood. They see adults drinking around them. They live with their parents and families who have a very tolerant attitude towards alcohol. And many young people want to drink as early as possible because they consider themselves as adults and they want other people to see themselves as adults. Also, we have a social climate in Australia that pretty much regards alcohol as a way of having fun and being entertained. And of course, there's a very strong element of media influence as well. Alcohol is advertised in the media relentlessly, and it always portrays people having fun with alcohol and having a good time. So I don't think it's surprising that most young people in Australia look forward to drinking alcohol.
For sure. So how much are young people actually drinking?
Not all young people in Victoria drink, and perhaps most of them don't drink on a regular occasion. But by the time young people leave secondary school, about 85% of them have tried alcohol at least once. According to the latest secondary school survey of young people, about 16% of students aged 12 to 15, so that's the junior students in the school, had consumed alcohol in the week prior to the survey, and about 40% of senior students aged 16 to 17 had drunk alcohol in the week before the survey. So that's a reasonably high minorities of secondary school students who are probably drinking on a regular basis.
Okay, so can you tell us about some of the effects of alcohol?
Certainly. Well, there are short-term and long-term effects of alcohol. The short-term effects that alcohol releases our inhibitions. We should understand that alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. So alcohol's effect on the brain is to slow us down. So we lose coordination, we think more slowly, we respond more slowly, we are less coordinated. That's in a physical sense. In an emotional sense, we lose our inhibitions. Inhibitions are those brakes on our behaviour, the things that restrain us from doing perhaps foolish things or impulsive things. So we're more likely when we've been drinking to say things that we wouldn't normally say, or to do things we perhaps wouldn't normally do. We may express our aggression more intensely when we've been drinking.
So, Geoff, what are the effects from increased consumption of alcohol?
Well, when people drink more than a few drinks, and they're likely to become intoxicated to varying degrees, and being intoxicated puts people at risk of a whole series of problems and harms because people are less coordinated. They may fall over, have an injury. Because we've lost our inhibitions, we may take part in risky behaviour that we wouldn't normally do. We may get into a car with a drink driver. We may in fact drive a motor car. We may engage in activities like unsafe sex. We may become aggressive because we've lost those internal brakes that we would normally use to restrain our behaviour. Mm-hmm. There's also a higher risk of suicide when people are intoxicated. People are more likely to act on their impulses. They're more likely to take risks. So there's a whole range of harms that may occur to people when they've been drinking, when they've consumed quite a bit, and when they're intoxicated.
What about some of the long-term harms related to alcohol?
Well, there's a whole series of illnesses and diseases that are caused by consumption of alcohol over a longer period, and that includes things like brain damage. It includes liver disease, liver cirrhosis, alcoholic pancreatitis. Alcohol affects every organ of the body because it's passed through our body via the bloodstream. So almost every organ in the body can be affected by alcohol. And so there's a whole host of diseases and conditions that alcohol causes.
Okay. People often talk about drinking guidelines. Are there drinking guidelines for underage young people?
Well, the National Health and Medical Research Council has published drinking guidelines for Australians, and some of these guidelines do apply to young people. For the first time, the NHMRC has advised that young people under 18 should not drink alcohol if they can avoid it, and no one under 15 absolutely should drink alcohol. So they're suggesting that no one under 15 drinks alcohol. For young people aged 16 to 17, if they can avoid it, best to avoid it. But if they are going to drink alcohol, then they should limit themselves to no more than 2 standard drinks in a day.
So, Geoff, why isn't drinking safe for underage young people?
Drinking is particularly unsafe for underage young people because they are physically and emotionally not yet mature. So their bodies are still growing. In particular, there's concern about the brain, the impact of alcohol on the brain, because we know alcohol is toxic to the brain in large quantities. And during the teenage years, the brain is still developing. And so for a young person drinking, it may have a big impact on the brain, and that may inhibit their cognitive and learning abilities later on. Second thing is that we know that the younger people start drinking, the greater the risk they have of developing an alcohol problem by early adulthood. And in fact, from the secondary school survey, we know that the young people who are binge drinking at age 16 have generally started drinking much earlier, say around 11 or 12, than the students who aren't binge drinking. There's also a greater risk for young people who start drinking early of suffering an alcohol-related harm. They're more likely to drink in large quantities. They're more likely to be intoxicated, so they're at greater risk of suffering an acute harm. So essentially, there are really good reasons why it's not a good idea for young people to start drinking early.
Fantastic, Geoff. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah.
For more information about alcohol and the new secondary supply legislation, visit the Teen Drinking Law website at teendrinkinglaw.vic.gov.au. This podcast was developed by the Australian Drug Foundation in partnership with the Victorian Department of Health and Vic Health. The content of this podcast is provided as general information only. It is not intended to be given as advice and should not be relied upon as such. If you are concerned about any issue raised by the podcast, then you should seek your own professional advice.